So can each of you just give me a little bit more of a description of, I'm going to scooch over here because then I can see you better. That's better. Can you each give me a little bit more of a description of what it is that the companies that you work for, or in your case, Reina, the organization that you're a mentee to, what it does and how you get involved?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I'm Elmy Bermejo, and I'm president of the San Francisco Commission on the Environment. We have a commission and a department, and the commission is 7 members appointed by the mayor of San Francisco, and we advise the mayor and the board of supervisors on environmental policies for the city. Aside from that, I'm also involved in organizations that recruit, train women in public policy to create effective change through policy, and also to have women in different communities become experts and also champions of their own success.
Oh, fantastic. Stephanie, can you give us a little bit more information about what you do as well?
Well, I started my business life as a banker, as you said, in London, and then I became a humanitarian worker, so a complete life change. I went to Darfur, Sudan, Liberia, many, many places. I was president of Action Against Hunger, and then this is my 3rd life as a diplomat. I'm an ambassador. I was ambassador of France to Uganda, and now I'm still an ambassador and General Secretary of this summit that Michelle talked about. So in Bordeaux, please take out your diary and take these dates. 4th, 5th, and 6th of June 2020 is going to be the Africa France Summit. The theme is sustainable cities. So we're going to talk about cities in Africa, cities in France, down to village level, small size, big size. How can we make the life of people living in cities better? For the environment, for the social life, and of course, women are going to be at the center of this summit.
And Renee, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a particle physicist. Right now, I'm working as a researcher for the French National Center of Research, the CNRS. And part of my activity on my time, I also devoted to capacity building activities, scientific capacity building activities in Latin America with the support of the European Commission and the Erasmus Plus program. And one of the things is that last year I joined a program that is called Homeward. It's a leadership program, and I can only say that it's a groundbreaking leadership program. That have the idea of train in communication leadership strategy, a 1,000 network of women with scientific background. It's a program that will be running for 10 years, and it started in 2016. So I'm part of the 5th cohort that will join this program, and it have a background in Antarctica. So I can tell you a little bit more about how it goes and how I'm expecting and hold my hopes for this leadership program in the next year.
Oh, fantastic. Which brings me on to my first question, really. How important do you think it is to have these sort of female communities, especially, I mean, STEM and science we know is one of those areas in which you have fewer women, and working with more kind of developing or poor and marginalized areas of the community where women can sometimes be at the heart of it. How important do you think it is to have these communities of women to help drive impact faster?
I think it's incredibly important to have women at all levels because, as they say, if you can see it, you can be it. And especially for young women, if you don't see people who look like you in different spheres, whether it's business, politics, or just community leaders, then you think maybe that's not for you. And then the other thing for me is to make sure that we're bringing more people into organizations, into these kinds of opportunities, because it's not about, as they say, who's carrying the torch, but how do we light everybody's torch so they can be in the same movement and feel that they can equally contribute to change that's freely for the betterment of all communities.
And Stephanie, what do you think in terms of, because you've organized female communities before and with the France Africa Summit, how important do you think the community is in helping to drive impact?
I think when women get together, we have an incredible power, a huge power. The power to change the lives of our children, the life of everyone in our country. Our power has no limit, but we don't do it often enough. Getting together is very important. It's about mentoring one another, it's about being role models to one another, and it's about creating a network. If you equip a young lady with these three things, she doesn't need the money to go about and be an entrepreneur. She's going to have the skills, she's going to have the connection, and she's going to have the ambition, the knowledge that she can do it. I'll give you two examples. I was in Liberia in my previous life as a humanitarian worker, and I met these ladies in the suburbs of Monrovia, and they set up this thing called Victorious Women. What a nice name. So they get together, they put their savings together, it's a community sort of bank, and then they go about and do business. You need to understand in Africa that women are extremely laborious. They are working all the time because we were born with the gift of multitasking. We can have children, we can do the work, and we can also create value. And we do everything, but we don't talk about it. We need to talk more about what we bring to society because it's enormous and it's in GDP points. In Africa, women produce 62% of the economic goods. 62%, more than the men. But people believe men are doing everything. They're leading the economy, they are the power, they are the visible faces. We need to put women forward. When I was in Uganda, I got together with my female colleagues, ambassadors, head of UN agencies, big women of all nationalities. We sat together, we had dinner, and I said, what do we do as women for women? Of course, the UN organization, they do a lot, but what do we do as women? So we put together this Women for Women initiative, just in Uganda, a small thing, but we detected 25 young ladies in business, in sport, academics, rights, and we said, you are phenomenal ladies. Get together, bring to one another the power of being a force. And honestly, they were grateful. We had a phenomenal ceremony of awards. We took them to the US, to Turkey and France, and now they're growing. So the women communities are there to make other women grow because the sky is the limit when we get together.
And the Homebound initiative is a really great example of this, especially in science, where we know that there are fewer women kind of getting involved. And in terms of when we're thinking of environmental change and environmental impact, it's actually where a lot of the ideas are then pulled together. How have you found being in a community like that?
Yeah, indeed. When we are talking about science, even if 60% of the graduates are women, when we go up in the ladder, going to professorships, positions, or researchers positions, we only have between 10 and 20% of women in those leadership positions, depending on the country, of course. So there is really a work that we need to do because we need to bring to the table as much as a diverse and inclusive composition and group of people to discuss the global challenges. By global challenges, I'm talking about education access for everything, I'm talking about women empowerment, I'm talking about climate change. So for me, one of the things, the amazing thing that has been represented Homeward Bound so far is having that community. Is having this support community that you can communicate with, that they can understand the challenges that you are going through, that can support you, that you can start also creating projects and imagining new scientific projects and diversity projects with them. So that has been amazing. And I wanted to make a follow-up comment to what you did, what you say, is sometimes visibility is scary because visibility means vulnerability, right? But sometimes when we are playing big, when we are doing great things for social impact, maybe vulnerability can be seen more like a positive thing instead of a negative thing. So, yeah.
Thanks for that addition. So we've spoken a lot about the communities, but I'd love to hear some examples of great changes that you've seen? I mean, there's an abundance of like things that you've been doing here in terms of in politics and science, but I'd like to hear like one or two examples of areas in which, and we spoke about, if you don't remember them, I'll tell you because we spoke about them before we got here, of areas in which women have helped you to be able to implement a change more effectively or more efficiently.
I can think of several examples that have to do with, for instance, legislation that impacts everyday women, for instance. And it takes one person to say, for example, the example I'm going to talk about has to do with a healthy nail salon, which you think, healthy nail salons, who does that really impact? But if the women who are working at the nail salon are getting sick or are experiencing reproductive challenges that are tied to the toxins in the products that they are using, you start to look at this and you say, well, what are we going to do about this? An organization was started in San Francisco called the Healthy Nail Collaborative, and they started doing this work. And then a foundation called the Women's Foundation of California, which I'm a co-founder of the Women's Policy Institute of the foundation. And we thought, well, we're not just going to talk about helping this community. Let's talk about all the women in California that are impacted. So we started working with legislators to say, we're educating you about this issue. And one of them said, okay, a man, David Chu, who was an assembly member, said, I will write the piece of legislation with you. We worked with him. The legislation was written. We did all our community meetings, et cetera, and it was passed. After that was passed, then there was the Commission on the Environment did an education program to say we are going to go out to the 200 salons in San Francisco. I think 220,000 people are impacted working salons in California. And that's a health challenge for a lot of people. So we started educating people in San Francisco, and other cities have adopted that. There was even an article in the New York Times. So that takes you an idea from someone who says, why is this happening? Is it happening to anyone else? What are we going to do about it? And who do we enlist to help us get that done? And I think those are just one example of something like that, where there's so many others, you know, the baby bottle bill. And then recently in California, maybe this is, in some European countries, this is not a problem in terms of having women on corporate boards. But Senator Hannah Beth Jackson introduced legislation, which was passed. And now in California, as of this year, every board that has every corporate board that is headquartered in California must include at least one woman on their board. And now there's opportunities, because now how do we make sure we're getting women in those boards? It's not just saying, oh great, it happened, but now it's, okay, we have lists of people, we are making sure we're connecting with those decision makers to make sure that women at those tables as well.
Those are incredible examples. We've got the baby bottle bill. We've got women in boards in California, just absolutely needs to happen. And we've also got this idea of healthier nail salons, which is a really practical idea where you can think, well, where does that kind of come in? And to see how that evolves to take from, you know, I think it should be good in my little town to it being across the whole state is huge.
Right. And I think one of the things about that, you think it seems very minor, maybe it's not as important when you're talking about healthy nail salons, but it's a big industry, and it impacts maybe the woman working there, but it's going to impact their whole family. So we also say that when you educate a woman, you're not just educating one person, you're educating a whole family, and therefore an entire community. So you see the ripple effect of the changes.
And it's something that, I mean, I don't know of a lot of men who are going to nail salons, honestly,
Many
to get their nails
do.
done. I mean, they're not generally putting on a lot of polish like we do.
Like the
Now I'm
massage.
getting conscious about my nails. So we're going to move swiftly on, because now I'm thinking I need to hide these nails in case that wasn't healthy. Stephanie, in your 21 years as a humanitarian, you must have a ton of examples. Can you share one or two?
no names. Many, many ladies I met were just phenomenal, but they were anonymous voices or women. But what keeps me going is when I see the big ladies of this world, the really big ones. Let's name a few names there. And then a young lady I met recently was phenomenal. When you see Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, first female president in Africa, in France, we are yet to have a female president. We are yet to have a president of parliament in France. So Africa has done it. When I was in Uganda, the head of parliament was a woman, Rebecca Kadaga. I was not always in agreement with her, but she was a strong lady. You look at the US, you look at Michelle Obama. You look at how tough it was on Hillary Clinton to run for president. Women, we get there, but it's tough for us, even tougher than for men. Why is that? Why do we collectively think that the women cannot do it or they have to go the extra mile? Now the young ladies, and that's where we need to empower these young ladies. I'm going to mention one. Fatoumata Ba, she's a young Senegalese. She studied in France. She co-founded Juma in Ivory Coast. She now opened a fund for startups. She's a driven young lady. So what keeps me going in the fight for women empowerment is to have these figures. But what also saddens me to some extent is how tough it is for us women to get there. Always tougher, always having some remarks which are a sexist angle to some extent, because collectively societies are not there yet in our mindset on equality. But when it comes to the actual work, we're there. We do more than our share. So we need now to push it through, not being a threat to men, find a balance, but we need to keep on going on this women empowerment issue.
And Renee, I mean, I'm loving, do give it a round of applause. They're catching me out now for not giving them time to, I warmed them up to engage, and now they're like, we want to clap, great. So, I mean, I'm loving, how has your experience been in terms of, you're in a field where we know, particularly, you know, in the higher realms, it's very male-orientated. How have you found it, especially having this community behind you in navigating that?
Yeah, indeed. When I started in this field, it's been already a little bit more than 10 years that I started there, definitely the environment was, let's say, a little bit more competitive, less collaborative, I would say, which might be a thing of a generation. It might be because for many years the field was a masculine one, and this has an impact. I mean, this has an impact in the mindset of the people. The thing has been changing. Actually, I'm working at a collaboration of 3,000 scientists from all over the world. It's called Atlas Experiment at CERN, which is the European Nuclear Organization Center in Geneva. And in the 10 years that I've been there, I've seen the number of women, not only, I mean, at the different levels, but also at the leadership levels increasing. Like when I was in the early 2000s, it was maybe 10%, now it's rising. And actually the current director of CERN is a woman, is Fabioli Gianotti. So you see the change that is coming from the women leadership style. So you create an environment that is more open, an environment that feels more welcoming, I would say. The female or the women leadership style is this mindset of legacy, of nurturing, maybe because of the society or maybe because it's our nature. But we are more nurturing, and we are open to new ideas, so we create a more open environment for discussion. And this, I've been feeling it a lot in the community, in the field in the last few years.
And are you finding is it just in that community? Are you finding those ripples are now starting to go outside of the community as well?
So one of the amazing things with Homeward is that it allowed me to share now these experiences with 75 women that are participating in this GR program. They are coming from different fields in science, and they relate to this experience. They mention that this changing is happening also in different fields. There is still a lot of work to do, but we are getting there. We need to do the work, but we are getting there.
And presumably you get a degree of kind of confidence from that, because if you're in a group of people and they're having a similar sort of experience, it almost makes it easier for you to then go out and say, I can be that torchbearer now and start to push myself up the ranks, because I'm not just in the midst feeling like I'm doing this by myself.
Yeah, and this is why the experience of Homeward Bound is important, that it's a women-only experience. Because it's that, you are in this environment that you feel more comfortable and more open to share your experience and to propose solutions, right? But it's just a step. This is something that we always discussed in the Homeward Bound. Actually, the founder, Fabian Darner, is an Australian person. She dreamed about this, actually. This idea came to her in a dream. And she put it together, and it started in 2016. And one of the things that we always discuss is this is just a step. It's a one-year formation. So we have 1 year of training in communication, leadership, visibility training. And then at the end of the program, there is a 3 weeks trip to Antarctica, where we are the 100 women participating that year, 3 weeks discussing about science, discussing about the possibility of partnerships, collaboration, discussing about life and our experiences. But it's just a step, because then the important thing will be the network that you create in this program. It's a long-lasting network that you will create, and then you will reproduce that in your environment, at work, at home, locally, national. That's the idea. It's multiply.
Thank you. Elmy, you had something to add?
I'd love to add the part about the networks. And I think that when you are training women, for instance, there's a program called Hispanas Organized for Political Equality in California, and there's maybe 25 per group. What happens is that they are learning how to run for office, how to really be agents of change. But the real important component, or the second important component, is that it creates a network of these women who support each other. So beyond the class or the cohort after they graduate, they are still talking to each other. They are still saying, you're up for that job. I know somebody there. I'm going to call him to tell him you're a great person. And these are really important because we don't always have that. It's important to have not only mentors, but really people who are advocates for us in a real way, where they're saying, you must look at, Elmy, or you must look at Lovelda. She's great. You have to talk to her. Not just say, here's the resume, but really be an active champion of that person. And I see that not only with the Women's Policy Institute, many organizations that have to do with women who are running for office, where it creates this network that when they run for office, someone can say, I only have $50. I'm going to send you $50 for your campaign. I don't have money, but I'm going to volunteer. And it creates this real unity of community, and provides also that confidence in going on and knowing that you're not alone, that it could be scary, but you have a whole bunch of people behind you.
Fabulous. Stephanie, I want to end with you, and I'm going to give you the big ta-da. What should we take from this? So there's a lot of women in the room, a lot of men in the room, people here who are kind of thinking we'd really like to see more inclusion and more diversity to have a bigger impact. What actionable things should we be looking out for or take forward?
I remember about the self-confidence issue. When we were these women in position of power in Uganda, got together, in fact, we started to have monthly luncheon and dinner. We couldn't get enough of that because we were together discussing how we got there. Each of us, we said there was one point in our life, a turning point, when someone told us, you're great, you can do this, you can become an ambassador, you can become a scientist, you can become a CEO. I look at you with my eyes and I see this in you. Turning point in all of us, and each of us, we fought to get where we were. So I find that the gift of self-confidence is something you receive from your parents, and I'm a mother of 3, and if I give them one thing, it's going to be the power to believe in themselves. When you don't get that, we have to give it at a later stage in our life. So let's launch a movement now. We got the Me Too movement. It's a support system for women. We have the Me Too movement. Let's have the the Yes Woman Can movement. Shall we launch this Yes Woman Can movement? Yes, we can.
Yes.
Women, yes, we can. Yes, women can movement. Because if we believe in one another, if we look at each other with this look in our eyes, which is about how great you are, beautiful you are, powerful you are, how knowledgeable you are, how smart you are, you have no idea the power you're giving to that lady, and she will go places. I've seen it. I was, nice. It has a nice moment in my life. I did it. I helped some young ladies, and I can see it had an impact. I couldn't believe it. It's magical. It's a great gift. We are doing it, so we all have to do it. And this is our challenge, ladies, to give to one another this incredible power. We can't give it to ourselves. We are our worst judge. You look at yourself, you can't see how phenomenal you are. You need others to look at you and give that to you. It's a gift, so let's do this. The Yes Women Can movement.
Hashtag Yes Women Can. You heard it here first. Do you know what? I've got them started now. We're kind of a little bit over time, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. Sorry, ladies. They'll be over there somewhere, but you need better start that little hashtag in a moment. Please give an incredible warm round of applause for Elmy, Stéphanie, and Reina.